Well, good morning, everybody. I like to welcome a friend that I've been chatting with for quite a while. We'll do a little bit of a different thing today. Oh, let me turn on the actual camera. There we go, so they can look at something pretty. I'm going to be joined by Miguel Johnson, who is a composer who's been inspired. Would that be a fair way to say it, Miguel? By Elite and games like this? Yeah, okay, great. And first, let's do a quick, if we can, with everybody, do a quick audio chat. Check if you guys can confirm that you're hearing us just fine. Say hi for Miguel. Miguel, say something real quick just so we can test your audio. Yeah. It looks, oh, hold on. Maybe I don't have you coming through. There we go. Give that another try.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we should have it going through as far as I can
Okay, cool.
see. Okay, they
Cool.
said can't hear you. Let's make sure they can hear you now before we actually get started. And thanks, Donald. I appreciate it. Okay, great. They say perfect, perfect. Okay, great. So, like I said, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining me again as I get back to, as you guys have noticed, get back to making content, get back to playing the game, get back to doing some live streams. I've wanted to have Miguel on for a long time. I think I first discovered your stuff, man, over a year ago, and have pretty much used it exclusively in videos since. Every now and then I might use something a little different because I kind of tend to overuse it or use the same tracks because I like them so much. But so yeah, so today's going to be a little different. We're not going to necessarily focus on Elite. I just gave you guys a pretty view of a planet that I'm out near Colonia at, one of the green gas giants. So the image is going to be a little static for today, guys, because that's not the point. The point will be to listen to some of Miguel's music, talk about his music. And so why don't we, as we kick that off, Miguel, why don't you go ahead and just kind of introduce yourself a little bit, whatever you'd like to start with, and then we'll kind of jump into talking about a few things.
Well, as you know, my name's Miguel Johnson. I compose mostly orchestral kind of hybrid music. And I'm also kind of IT consultant as well.
Okay,
Um,
okay. Doesn't surprise me.
um, and, I kind of do both professionally, honestly.
Okay.
Um,
I was going to
and
ask about that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and so let's see. I guess that's a good intro. I guess I don't
Yeah,
know what
and
else.
so yeah, so let's talk a little bit about you mentioned professionally. Do you play professionally? Are you composing for other projects? What kind of stuff are you? Yeah, are you obviously you're selling the album, right, to a degree? Like, is that where most of the income comes from?
Yeah, sales, and streams, and actually, some people have used my music in short films,
Okay, okay,
and usually that's like kind of like a one time royalty free payment sort of thing.
okay, okay.
Um, I mean that could be anywhere from like 60 to $500
Sure,
really,
sure, sure.
just for one track to be in something,
And
So.
do you have something, an example of something you are particularly familiar or proud of that you would throw out?
Not really. They're the kind of unknown short films. The only thing that I think that I've done that you could easily find and search is the official game soundtrack that I did,
Okay, okay. What for? What game?
and it's called Gaia Beyond. It's on Steam.
Okay, Guy of Beyond. Is that what I heard?
Gaia, like
Oh,
Earth.
Gaia. Gaia.
Yeah, yeah,
Gaia.
yeah, yeah.
Gaia Beyond. Just Gaia Beyond.
Uh huh.
I tell you what. Let me
And
find. Yeah, keep going. I'm gonna find a link to it and post that in for everybody. Um,
yeah, and actually, the people who made that game, they discovered me through an Elite inspired album I made. And he liked my music, and he was like, "Hey, I would like you to make something for my game." Um, and the music in that album's a little more darker than I usually make.
Okay, I think that's
Um,
one of the few albums that I haven't grabbed of yours yet, and have it. And when you just said that it's one of the darker ones, that definitely my ears perk up because I definitely love the darker things that you do.
yeah,
The
in my head when I was making it, I was kind of like thinking like, this is kind of like more along the lines of Matrix or Blade Runner or
okay, okay.
not every track is like that, but for the most part, So I was kind of channeling that attitude, something kind of Blade Runner esque,
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And and that just I think something interesting maybe to go to is talk about some of your influences, right? Like, so who are some of your favorite musicians? Who are some of your favorite maybe composers?
you know. Um, Growing up, I loved the Star Wars soundtracks.
Okay, John
So
Williams,
John
obviously.
Williams,
Yeah,
yeah.
obviously.
Um, really liked Star Trek. Jerry Goldsmith,
Yep, absolutely.
basically.
Uh huh.
Danny Elfman.
Oh man, okay, yeah. Danny Elfman is a
Yeah,
huge personal favorite of mine.
yeah,
As
yeah.
is oh shit, did the Hunt for Red October soundtrack. Oh, it just escaped me. He's one of the bigger guys. It's not James Horner, is it? I don't think. I'd have to go look it up. But anyway, and I should have said this maybe off the top for those that don't know. I actually am a musician. Was a musician. I was a jazz performance major in school, in college, and played for a couple years after college. And then very typical musician thing. Got a girlfriend, needed real money, got a job, and then slowly that kind of faded away. I never wanted to teach. I love teaching. That might be obvious from the YouTube channel, and I've done a lot of it, in various things throughout my life. I was a racing instructor for 10 years. I've done, professional technical training through work. I've done technical sales. So I've always loved the teaching aspect, but man, I did not want to be a band director. Right after student teaching for a few years and seeing what the band directors went
Yeah,
through. And did you
yeah.
like when? And I'm assuming, but not don't let me. What was your music school experience like? Did you go through music school? Do you have a degree in music? What was that like?
You know, um, for me, I started off. Well, okay, I'll just start off saying that no, I didn't go to formal music school.
Okay, okay,
But what I did do is I started off just basically piano lessons,
okay. Uh huh.
and then from that, I mean, in middle school, all throughout middle school and high school, I always had like a symphonic band or orchestra type class that I attended, and I never had my own band or anything, but I did take the extracurricular activities like jazz band. Um, and we would do like performances and things like that.
Sure.
And that was
And so is
that was a pretty
piano
much
your
a
main
big journey.
instrument? Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
piano,
Yeah.
but because piano is a percussive instrument, so I generally, when it came to orchestra, you don't really play piano orchestra too often. There's
Agreed. Yeah.
certain
Absolutely.
songs.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Right.
Yeah,
Very rare for an orchestra to have, unless it's something very specific. Right.
yeah. When it comes to cinematic music, things like that, they'll put piano in there, of course. But when it comes to most orchestral music, piano is not a typical instrument. So I kind of got pegged into the whole percussion section as well as xylophones and bells because xylophones and bells are basically easy to transition to from piano. It's like a
Yeah.
big,
Absolutely.
big
Yep.
piano,
Yep.
you know.
Absolutely. Right.
um, but a lot of songs I would play multiple instruments. So I would play like the bells or xylophones, and I have a tambourine, and I have like a snare drum next to me, and I'll kind of cycle through all those parts. If possible, in just one song,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and luckily, I had a teacher that kind of recognized that they gave me freedom to do what I wanted, So
That's great.
if I
And
said,
yeah, yeah, we talked
but
a little before we got started about kind of the teacher that inspired us. I was very fortunate, especially in college, to have a professor, Dr. Forrester, who's no longer with us, who, I mean, I owe him so much in that, I liked jazz when I got to college, but I didn't understand it. It was typical teenager. I mean, I think I had good musical taste. I listened to a lot of Pink Floyd, a lot of that sort of stuff, and always appreciated and I always appreciated musicians' music, and I think you know what I'm talking about, right? Where it's got to
yeah,
have
yeah.
some level of skill, it's got to have some level of of into. And so maybe mention a little bit. And first, I'll actually say a thank you to Brandon Thar, if I'm saying your name right. He says, "Hey Miguel, he's a musician as well. Piano and bagpipes. Okay, interesting. You don't meet many bagpipists, if I'm saying that right." But yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of continue where you were going with school and stuff, and who inspired you, that kind of stuff.
So yeah, like I said, he gave me a lot of freedom and let me try what I wanted to try, and I kind of experimented with some instruments and some other songs. Like because it was a high school, they had some instruments you could just pick up and use. So I kind of experimented and played trumpet in a few songs, and he would just let me do it. That was kind of cool. So I got to kind of go through and experience all things, and I think what was really nice about all those years in orchestra band type classes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is I got to know how every instrument sounds and how they're used. And that was kind of a foundation in making the music I make now because it I don't even have to think about it. It's like, oh yeah, I want this sound, I want this, and this articulation, the way they're playing this, and it's like I'm kind of familiar with that, you
Sure.
know.
Sure.
So that's helped out a lot. And I had the same teacher in jazz band, and what he did was kind of unique. He saw that I was really good at improvisation, um,
Okay.
and
Okay.
not so strong
With
with sheet music,
sure. Sure.
you know. So and he let me do that. So in jazz band, we had one piano player. She would play the exact notes, and I would just do all the improvisation and play it however I wanted to. And that was pretty interesting because I don't think that's usually done
No,
too
and
much.
not at that level. And we're talking about high school at this point, right?
Yeah,
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 yeah, that's really uncommon for. First of all, it's uncommon for someone in high school to have the skill to improvise, right, at that kind of level. Let
yeah.
alone a director. My high school band director was very rigid. He was the type, for those that have seen the movie Whiplash, which Miguel hasn't. I told him he's got to see it. It's a story of
Yeah.
this young drummer basically going to Juilliard, who is, got this professor who is just an absolute tyrant. And my high school band director was that way a little bit, but at the same time, basically, if you gave it your all, success or fail, he was there for you, right? You come in not doing anything and you're just lazy about it, he would lay into you, right? But then I had my last professor in college, which is actually why I finally got out of music, was the unbelievable asshole that didn't inspire, he terrified. And I don't learn
Yeah.
music that way, right? There's a reason we say we play music, we don't work music, right? And when it becomes work,
Yeah.
and it sounds like for you, it probably never has gotten to that point. Is that right?
No,
Yeah, and
no.
I think that's a great thing. I mean, quickly, let me just ask chat real quick to make sure. I've got Miguel's music playing in the background. We're listening to the Citizen of the Stars album, and I just want to make sure it's either not too loud. I've got it really low so that it can come through. And if you guys are actually hearing it, I'm gonna turn it up a little bit just to make sure it's you guys are hearing it. So if you guys can just give me confirmation that that's an okay volume, because I figured here in a little bit maybe we'll talk about a couple specific things, play a few clips. Like specifically, Duel is one of my absolute favorites of yours. When we were talking, okay, great, great. There's Iron's confirming he can hear it. But yeah, Duel from Citizen of the Stars is a personal favorite of mine. In fact, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit of it since I interrupted and am talking about it now. Here we go. Let me turn it up a bit before.
Yes. So that track,
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
just,
yeah.
just
Give us, yeah, absolutely. Give us a little intro before I hit play on it.
I was listening to one of the Star Trek soundtracks from like the '80s, and it kind of began with something very similar. And I was like, I really like that intro.
Yeah,
And you
I love the
know,
tribal feel of it. Is the way I would describe it.
yeah,
Right?
and it was exactly kind of what I wanted. Now I didn't copy to 100% that little intro, but it's
Yeah,
pretty close.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, of course. Make your own spin on it, right? That's what we do. Stand on the
But
shoulders of giants and all, right?
yeah, but where I went next with it's totally different. And what I was really trying to do is something very similar to what you would do for like Klingons.
Okay, okay, sure, sure.
And this track was made kind of specifically with the race in mind and Star Citizen of the Van Duel. Um, and I don't really have much information on how they're like or whatever, but in my imagination, they're kind of a warrior race, kind of like Klingons. So I kind of made something that kind of made them not only sound aggressive but kind of honorable and
Yeah, yeah. No, I got you. Very, yeah. like I said, to me, it's very tribal. It's very
Yeah.
kind of like I can see the hero scene at the end of a film, that kind of thing. And that's one of the things that's always drawn me to your composition specifically. Is I remember in high school thinking, man, like I would love to be a film composer, right? I mean, modern classical music essentially are film scores, and there's so much incredible music buried in these films that people don't pay, you don't pay that much attention to in a way because it's part of the whole film and part of the whole experience. But wow,
Yeah.
some of it's just incredible. So yeah, let me play at the beginning of Duel here, guys. I've got the volume at 50%. It's a pretty kicking intro, so I'm hoping it's going to not be either too loud or too soft. If it is one or the other, if you guys can just let me know in chat, I'll adjust the volume. So here we go. This is the Duel. Miguel, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I can hear
Okay,
you.
there we go. There we go. Okay, I don't know if my mic just screwed up that whole time or not. So forgive me. I was asking. I'll go back to what I was saying. Are there any others? This was just one off the top of my head that I know rather well. Are there any others that are kind of this same vein, this kind of that are more like the Duel that we could throw out?
Not on this album.
Okay.
The last time I made something kind of similar to this, it was for the same purpose. There's a fan in game, and I hear myself
Oh,
echoing.
there we go.
Um,
Actually, that should do it. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
there,
That should do
there.
it.
Wait, I'm still hearing. I'm still hearing myself.
Are you? Try that. Okay, but then you're
There we
not
go.
coming
Okay.
through. If you're echoing right now, if unless it's killing you, it's going to take a minute to fix it. Is that okay?
Okay.
Is it
I'll
that? Is
try.
it? Yeah. Okay. Is it so bad that it's just driving you nuts? I don't know what changed. Hold on a second here. Let me pause that. Sorry about this, guys. Say something for me again, Miguel.
Testing.
Have you got?
It's still here.
You don't have the stream live, do you, in YouTube? Like you're hearing it through
You
Discord?
know what? It's muted. It's muted.
Um,
Yeah.
why are you coming through there? Let's try
Just
that.
started out.
That fix it.
Testing. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And you guys are still hearing him, right? Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. There we go. There we go. Just
Okay. Oh yeah. So there's a fan project. Um. It's called Star Trek Excalibur,
okay. Okay.
and it's not out yet. They've been kind of developing it for a while now. It's one of those like ongoing projects, So the main guy who's designing it, it's a whole team, but he's kind of like the leader, project leader. He contacted me and he wanted me to do specifically some Klingon battle music for the game.
Okay.
Um, and That's kind of my first time doing that. And I kind of put those tracks in Exodus.
Okay. Uh huh.
So there's a few tracks in Exodus. You'll probably find them that like kind of have that feel to it.
Yeah.
Um,
Any one specific one off the top of your head?
Let's see.
Because I'm looking through them and seeing if I remember the titles and recognize them.
Let me click on the album.
Sure, sure.
On Bandcamp.
Capital Ship Yamato, is that one that I'm thinking is pretty driving?
Oh, that's not from that. Let's see. Okay, so there's Fight to the Death. There's Time. No, that's not it. Yeah, Fight to the Death is one for sure.
Fight to the Death. Which track number is that?
22.
22. There we go. Okay. All right, we can give that one a listen. Here we go, guys. Oh yeah, I think I remember this one. Oh, it's not coming through, they say. Sorry, hold on, guys. What's up with my audio today? Let's try. That got it. Sorry, let me start it from the beginning. Great, thanks, guys. Yeah, that's another awesome one. It's funny. Like I don't know about some of you guys, but a lot of times I'll even go to bed to this kind of stuff. Just have it playing in the background, really low. Although I get to a driving song like that, and it'll wake me up because it gets me so excited, right? Let's talk a little bit about kind of not only your creative process in terms of what inspires you and how you go through that, but more. I'm actually more curious, being a musician and a geek, on the technical side, like what tools you're using. Are you doing this on a PC, on a Mac? Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, on the technical side, and this kind of was an evolution because I started off. There was so many years where something like this just was not possible.
Yeah,
Not unless you were like rich.
yeah, absolutely,
So,
right. I mean, yeah,
yeah. So today, I mean, if you ever wanted to do it, today is probably the easiest way to accomplish it technically. Um, but yeah, as far as tools, you can pretty much use any digital audio workstation you want. And it's just more so like the UI or performance of the product, But
yeah, yeah.
I use Reaper,
Reaper, okay.
and I started off using Reaper, mostly because it was cheap.
Good reason.
It was yeah, it was like $60, and I was like, okay, well that's a big difference between $500 product or.
And this is Reaper's just a recording suite, or it's a MIDI suite, or
Yeah, so you can think of a digital audio workstation as kind of like the backbone that all your software will run on.
yeah. So I mean, are we comparing it to like Logic or
Yeah.
yeah? Okay. Or what's the big one on Mac?
Cubase.
Yeah, and oh, shit, what's the most popular one that's comparable to
Well,
Logic? Oh god damn it, it's escaping me. Anyway,
Pro Tools?
Pro Tools. Thank you, Pro Tools. That's what I'm thinking of, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so that's kind of the backbone. So I mean, just having that alone, generally you don't get that much with it. You just get some effects and tools, and you can have the ability to record analog audio, things like
Yep.
that. You
Yep. And so
know,
are you then doing most of your stuff? Are you playing it live via synth and recording multi-track? Are you programming MIDI? Are you doing kind of both?
yeah. So now, the majority of what you're hearing are live recorded samples of
Okay.
actual musicians playing their instruments, and they don't just play one note. You know, I mean, every note is to every degree of intensity is probably played at least 20 times to get some kind of variance that's like randomly selected. So if you have one guy kind of hitting the piano key or the violin note like one time at medium intensity, you probably record that like 20 times, so that every time that you press the key on your MIDI controller, your piano, it'll play like a random recording of that note. So you'll get this really realistic play. Um, so yeah, so that's the sampler.
Okay.
And I mean, those string libraries alone, I probably have like 2 terabytes of wave files just for that.
And so are you then like what app are you using to kind of do that synth? Is that all inside Reaper and your piece you're like you've got a keyboard connected MIDI to your PC and controlling Reaper
Yeah.
that way? Okay. Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. Because I was going to ask like
So
what board you were using if you were using just,
no, okay. So you use a software called a sampler,
Yep, okay.
and for that I mostly use Contact,
Okay.
and then within Contact there's retail purchasable packs,
Okay, uh-huh.
and most of the ones I use are made by either Spitfire Audio
Okay.
or Orchestral Tools. Those are like my big go-tos, you know. And
I,
they
I
have
gotta
a
say,
bunch
because
of
your
different.
strings, like specifically your string patches are really out of this world, right? I mean, I've got an older synth. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yeah,
like digital wind instruments. Like
yeah,
okay, so I've got a Yamaha WX7, their original one from like back in the '90s, because its hardware has not really changed since that. It still works great. And then I've got one of Yamaha's nicer. I've got the VL70M, which is one of their nicer wind synth, modules. But it's only it's monophonic, not polyphonic. So that means only one sound at a time for those that don't know. And it's got some really great woodwinds and other patches in it. But oh my God, the strings are just they're just unusably terrible, right? And so
yeah.
I've always been curious about what patches you use for those because they are really really good.
Yeah, and the reason why they're so good is because the ones that I use, I mean, they have up to like, 4 to 6 different mic positions, and that's where the realism comes into play, because I can turn up the close mic that's right up on the instrument. I could turn down the mic above it, turn up the ambient mic that's far away, and I can come up with this mix where I can hear all the dynamics of the instrument. I can hear the guy rubbing the string, or
Wow.
like
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
you get that detail in everything, and that's something you don't get typically on a keyboard.
Right, right, right.
Um,
Because
then there's a lot
I
of
knew there was no way you were just using a keyboard, right? So I assume you've got a keyboard with
yeah,
weighted keys, I would assume, right? And so
yeah,
and for those again that don't know, that would be like most keyboards that you think of, right? Certainly the lower end stuff, it's just a spring and a plastic thing. The weighted ones is actually a big heavy key with a special mechanism behind it that makes it feel like it's a piano, which makes, I mean, I'm not a piano player, but I'm sure you can say it makes all the difference in terms of playing.
yeah, and the sophistication in recording they have now, and not every sample library is equal. So
Sure.
the ones that I use tend to have like the most in depth recording processes and technology behind them, and that's part of it. That's part of it. But also, learning how to use them effectively is
Yeah.
big part of it because there's people that have
Absolutely.
the same ones I have, but it will not sound the same
Right,
as.
right, right. I mean, it's like, look, I've got Photoshop, but just because I've got Photoshop in front of me doesn't mean I'm going to be able to produce art with it.
Yeah,
And even, somebody like me who's not, I'm not, visually artistic at all. But once you learn the tools and you learn all the little tricks and the stuff that the tools let you do, it's amazing what you can do. As yourself, not, I mean, not being a classically trained, in terms of going through a classical music education, right? It just doesn't matter to a degree, right?
yeah,
If you've
yeah.
got the ear and you've got the feel for it. And so, throughout your composition process, I'm assuming you notate some of your ideas and things, right? How much of that are you actually, writing down? Are you doing that on literally on sheet paper? Are you doing that in the PC? How does that part of your process work?
You know, this is how I create, and it might not be how what everyone does,
Yeah.
but to me, sound itself is first. So what I'll do generally is I'll go through one instrument. Let's say maybe it's the strings or whatever. I find I find I find something that I like. I put that down. It might even be a single note. It might be a chord, whatever, right? Um, and then I like that, right? And then I'll go and I'll find another instrument, and that sounds good with that. And a lot of the same loop played over and over again until I like the whole sound palette. Um, and then I'll go back and I'll start messing with it more and more and more. So really, there's no notation or anything like
Yeah.
that. It's
Okay.
more
So
so,
you really aren't writing stuff down, then, are you?
no, not
Yeah.
at all,
Okay.
not at all.
And from somebody
Now
who was more classically trained, I mean, I'm a jazz player, right? So a lot of that obviously you're not writing down. But if I were doing something like this, yeah, I can see me there, with a pen and paper, a pencil and paper, writing out notation that
uh,
way, right?
yeah, yeah, and a lot of songs start out with me just playing with chords on the piano a little bit and sing, what I think might sound good, like, and I do it step by step. Like, how do I want this song to start? How do I want it to progress the next part, the next part, the next part, and I basically, just I kind of wing it, but at the same time, I like the sounds to be there, and sound a certain way, and then one of the biggest things that kind of make the track, in my opinion, and it took a while to get it right, is reverb. So
Oh, sure, sure.
I have really good reverb, and the reverb that I have is the same kind that the same algorithm and software that they use for a lot of Hollywood movies, and that's the TC Electronics reverb. There's a box that they use. I think it's called the TC 3000 or something, and that's used for a lot of movies. And I learned this through through this research, and I was like, okay, well, how do I get that sound? It comes to find out, if you go to their site, you can get the software version of that for like
Interesting.
$200.
Wow. Okay.
You
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
um, so I actually compose with the reverb on the way I like it for
Mm-hmm.
each track,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to get that sound, and I just keep just adding things to it until I'm happy with it, and
It's
it's not
interesting.
typically how you usually create a song, but
Well, hey, I mean, well, first of all, there's no typical, if you ask me, right? There's what works for
yeah,
you and
yeah,
your process, right? It's funny you mentioned reverb specifically. Like, whenever I practice these days, I don't like just, a lot of people don't realize, like, if you hear a saxophone player specifically just stand and play, it doesn't sound at all like what you envision a saxophone player, on a certainly not a rock album, right, or even a jazz album, because
yeah,
of those different effects, right? So a lot of times, like, I don't even like
yeah,
to practice unless I get out my mic and have something with reverb and wear my headphones so that I then sound like, like I really sound. Especially being a wind musician, the way that the sound reverberates through your head and to your ears and stuff, it's obviously different, right? But I get exactly what you mean. It's amazing the difference that an effect like that can make on your creative process and getting yourself in the right headspace and all that kind of stuff,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Reverb is what, that and mic positions is what makes my music sound so hyper real. I
Yeah.
mean, if you don't have the reverb, sometimes you'll doubt whether it's real or not. And to me, that's the biggest objective in a lot of my songs is I try to make it sound like it was recorded in a
By a,
live.
yeah,
You
exactly.
know,
And I'll say, I mean, because I know the source and everything, I very much assumed that it was not a full orchestra playing it. But I really don't think that if you put this in front of most people, laymen certainly,
yeah,
they're not going to realize this is not, that this is not a full orchestra, right? That
yeah,
it really is that good. What we're listening to right now is City Planet. It's got a little more digitally kind of effects to it, right? Maybe that's a less good example, but again, it's specifically your string patches. The brass stuff I think is also really really good. How long does it generally take you when from, and then this is going to be a hard thing to answer to a degree because it's going to vary, but from start to finish, like you get the idea for a song, you've got the first kind of inkling of what either the main theme is going to be, maybe the melody, that kind of stuff. From that to a complete song, are we talking 6 months? Are we talking a month? What's generally the feel?
um, usually I can pretty much, for the most part, complete a song. This is excluding mastering and perfecting the mix and the
Yeah.
master. Just the composition part and getting it sounding pretty much like 90% of what it's going to sound. Like that takes me usually about 1 to 2 days.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay, that fast. Okay, that's impressive.
Yeah,
So we're talking in the neighborhood of what, 15 to 20 hours, something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then how long do you spend on mastering?
Um, that is probably another couple days. The mixing and mastering process can, because I'll think it's done, but then I'll listen to it again,
Oh, sure.
and
Or
I'm
go
like,
listen to it on a different device, right? Here's something a little different. Sure.
yeah,
Why don't you know what?
yeah, and some. Go
Oh,
ahead.
no, please, please go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say sometimes the computer messes up and you get like these little CPU computer glitch noises in the music, or
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Absolutely.
some things you just don't hear, and then I have to go back and because I have to listen to these songs over and over and over and over again. So
Yep. It's the same
yeah,
way with my videos, right? You get by the end of it, you're almost sick of it. And then it doesn't matter. As soon as you're done with it, you realize there was one thing you would have done differently. Am I right? Right. There's always
yeah, yeah.
something. And, before let's talk briefly, let's back up a quick step, and not make some assumptions here. Why don't you explain a little bit to everybody, at a high level, what mastering is? When we talk about mastering and mixing, talk about what that is for everybody.
Mastering or mixing?
I'd
Just
say,
choose one.
but I'd say both. Like, mixing
Okay.
mixing is probably pretty easy, but the mastering is going to be the bigger one, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Well, I guess so. Mixing to me is so each track in a song. So usually that's each instrument. Um, but there could be one track that has more than one instrument on it. But anyway,
Yeah,
but let's just say, just for the sake of argument,
sh-
it's each
sure,
instrument, right?
sure.
It's basically how loud each track is in relation to another track. That's pretty much simplifying it.
Yep,
Like
yep.
that's mixing.
That's a very good example of mixing, right? The saxophone player's
Yeah,
too loud, you turn him down. The drummer's too quiet, you turn him up. Until you get that
yeah,
nice balance, right? Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah,
And
so
you
now
can
talk
get
about.
all. Oh, and I was gonna say you can get all fancy and do kind of a dynamic mixing process where you have it like automate how loud something is throughout the track.
Uh huh.
And I generally don't do that unless it's something I have to do. But usually it's just I set one volume for it and that's it, and then I control the rest of the volume with the mod wheel on the keyboard, which makes it play more intense or more low.
Sure, sure.
And sometimes I even create a secondary track that's lower, just so I don't have to dynamically mix it. But yeah, so mastering to me is more of a frequency thing. Um, so you know, a lot of times it's taking off some of the high end of something or the low end of something, adjusting the different frequency of a track, or all the tracks together. You know, usually all those things. So let's say, the very typical problem is the bass is too strong, and it's coming through like way too strong. So you have to go in the low end of your EQ, and you'll have to just for that one track, you'll have to kind of curve it down so that it doesn't hit so hard in the low end, you know.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Um, and or you might have a snare where if you take off the high end frequencies of it, it might sound better, you know. In orchestral music, I find it's already mastered. All the samples are already pretty much mastered already, so you don't have to do too much to each instrument, you know. And if you do, it's going to sound more synthetic, you know. So
Yeah, yeah.
you kind of want those artifacts and those imperfections in there, and then
That's right.
that's
That's right. You want it to sound like a human and not like,
yeah,
and not like it's programmed. That's why I'm not surprised to hear that you aren't essentially programming stuff, right? And just kind of programming in the notes, so to speak, and that you're actually playing the stuff live. I mean, you could feel that.
yeah,
I went to school. I was in college in the early '90s, and that's when MIDI and all this stuff was very new. And I can
yeah,
remember, I don't remember what model it was, but we had a really high-end Yamaha keyboard for the time. It was several $1,000s, and you could basically go in, and program. Okay, this is an eighth note, this, and this is a quarter note, and this is a
yeah,
16th, and
yeah,
program the whole thing in. And oh man, I must have spent 50, 60 hours easily taking a score. I don't remember what it was, but right, taking a score and basically programming it in to the keyboard, right? And just from a nerd standpoint and everything. And, for the time it sounded great. It's obviously nothing like we have today. I think we were limited to maybe even 8 channels. Maybe it was 16, but not, nothing like the essentially unlimited that you get now, right? I asked
yeah.
early on, are you a PC guy, Mac guy? Is this all PC based?
PC.
Yeah. Okay. And is that a conscious decision? Money? Just had a PC? Go ahead and do it on PC anyway.
Yeah, I mean, technically, I would love to use Logic,
Yeah.
um,
Okay.
but there's no Logic PC version.
Right. Right.
So, and because I use my PC for everything, it's like the choice, you know. So
Yeah. That
I
doesn't
can't.
that doesn't surprise me. Sure. Of course. Right.
So one of these days when I separate the two, I'll probably use Logic and I'll use a Mac, you know. But and only because Logic has such, I mean, a good array of extra tools and it has a nice UI. It's just there's a lot of bonuses to go in that direction. And also Reaper doesn't process video well, so if I was ever doing music to video often, I'd be better off with something else. Because Reaper, a lot of times I have to downsample the video to a much lower bit rate and file size in order for it to not lag and actually play correctly.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, what
Um,
what sort of specs is your PC? Like, do you need a high end PC for this? If somebody's wanting to get in this kind of stuff, like, what kind of level are you at?
CPU is important, but nowadays, most CPUs are good enough. The biggest thing is RAM. Like you need at least 32 gigs of RAM.
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
Um, and
I'm assuming to hold all the patches and all the samples. Is that
yeah,
basically right?
yeah, an SSD is a big, big,
I can imagine. Yep.
thing.
Yep. It's same for me,
Yeah,
right? Like
because
I run 32 gigs of RAM. I use SSDs and an NVMe drive, right? And it's
yeah,
amazing, when you're cutting all this together. And while my videos, I'm sure that they don't even compare to the level of tracks and stuff that you're dealing with,
yeah,
right? So I can't imagine how important that is.
yeah. When you're doing EDM and synth things like that, those things load up quick no matter what, right? But
Right.
the stuff that
Right.
I'm using, those, I mean, you're loading thousands of wave files. And that could take forever if you're on a regular mechanical hard drive.
Sure. Sure.
So I try to stay away from that, but I can't. It's hard to avoid because I have so many samples. Um, so I do have a lot of my samples on a mechanical hard drive, but the ones I use the most I put in SSD.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. One thing that I kind of realize, let's talk about this. We've talked a lot about the recording and your creative process at home. Do you play live? And do you play solo shows live? Do you play with other bands live? Like, let's talk about that aspect of it, because I'm assuming if you do, like me, playing live is there's no thrill like it. There's no, I mean, yeah, playing live with other musicians, to me is the pinnacle of what I love about music.
yeah, excluding jazz band performances and playing those live, because we'll move past that to more of my post high school days.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
um, so I always was interested in orchestral music and everything. But as I said earlier, um, the technology just wasn't there for me to just jump into it and be what I wanted it to be. So I just didn't do it. So for a long time, the only music that I would do was hip hop music.
Okay. Okay.
So I actually did. I had this pretty, pretty much this. I don't know, maybe 10 year stint where I was doing hip hop, and I was making hip hop tracks, and I was doing guest appearances on songs, and I was actually rapping and all that stuff.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So and I never really found that fulfilling, but it was kind of
Okay.
fun because I got to do music, in a way that because I wasn't really into like electronic music really, like and I guess I hadn't really figured out that I could do the stuff like I do now, like Night Forever and City Planet, things like that. Like I really enjoyed doing that too, but I didn't really think of that. Like I had a bunch of friends who were in the hip hop, and it's kind of what we did.
And are you
So
like, were you doing that simply because kind of your friends, or is hip hop, a particular favorite style of yours?
I was into it
Okay.
back then.
Okay.
At a certain point, I and this was probably I don't know, probably 10 years ago. I was like, I don't really have anything new or really new to say that hasn't already been said.
I get you.
And
I get you in that kind of genre.
yeah, and I just lost more and more interest in it,
Yeah.
and I just started doing my own thing, and I think it was but as far as live performances, yes, I have performed live, and most of that was doing like hip hop and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. And if
Um,
you could, uh, if you could pick your dream, maybe job, gig, whatever you'd want to call it in music, what would that be?
I would like to do, um, really video game music, as well as like specifically sci-fi or fantasy movies or TV
Okay.
shows.
Okay. So ideally,
Um,
still similar to, what you're doing now. It seems like with
yeah, yeah,
composition
yeah,
and that type of music. Well, I think that's pretty great if you're basically already to a large degree doing what you would love, right?
yeah.
Um,
Like if someone told me I want you to do music for some little kid cartoon thing, I'd be like, I don't know, man. Like,
yeah, yeah,
because I'm too much of an artist to like just do anything. Like it has to inspire me. It has to get me going. And that's kind of why I made Citizens of the Stars in the way I did, because I need like a muse. I need something to write to. Otherwise, it just does not come to me. So in this case, I was like, I'm messing around with Star Citizen now. I'm kind of in that zone. Let me try to make something that kind of that universe inspires.
yeah, yeah. It's
And the same thing happened. Go ahead.
no, no. Please continue.
Oh, and the same thing happened with Elite Dangerous. I was playing a lot, and I was like, I got some music I could write to this. And a lot of my creative process, happens when I'm sleeping too. Like it'll like be in a dream, and I'll have this melody, and I have this whole song, and I'll wake up, and I'll be like, okay, I gotta get this down.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Somebody just asked a great question that was segueing kind of with what we were saying is, somebody asked how much Elite do you play? How much Elite, Star Citizen? How much do you get to game? And maybe even what other games are you into? For both fun and for inspiration. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
yeah, I used to play a lot more Elite. I don't play that much now. I'm kind of in that zone of like, I'm kind of looking at what we're gonna do next. And the thing that, as far as Elite is concerned, since most of what I do in Elite is explore,
Okay, yeah,
and that's kind of my thing. Like I'm not really a combat guy, or you know that kind of thing. So to me, exploration is kind of at a dead end for me, because I've done a lot of exploration.
yeah,
So
and like roughly how many hours are we talking? You have an Elite? 100, a 500, 1,000, 2,000? ballparkish?
I think Steam tells you, don't they?
Yeah, Steam can be a little inaccurate. If you're in your
Oh, you know
ship right
what?
now, you
I
can
didn't. I
find
didn't
out.
buy it. I didn't buy it through Steam, so
Yeah,
never
if
mind.
you're in your ship, you can look at the codex, and right there in the first page of the codex, it'll show. Or yeah, I think you have to click on your commander name for stats, and it'll show you right there in the bottom right hand corner area.
I will look it up now. Let's see status. Where do you see it?
Yeah, like if you're in your ship with me, if you look on the right panel to
Yeah.
codex, and then if you click on, I think it's just stats. Hold on, I'll bring up mine for everybody. Let's see how much I have in my alt. So if you
Reputation,
go
session
to
log.
codex and then click on commander, and this is my alt. Click on commander, and then right there in the middle, bottom left or top left, it should say approximate time played.
It's under status tab, right?
It's on the session log tab. On status, it's under exploration, but it's also right there on the session log tab.
Okay, session log. They
That
keep changing this stuff.
should be right there in the middle, top left box, approximate time played. See that right under your ranks?
Okay, reputation, session log.
So hold on,
See,
let's make sure. I think we're in the wrong place. So did you go to the codex first? So on the right tab, go to the codex. And then
Wait, is that's in the same right panel which you look at?
yeah, like in your ship. Exactly. In your ship, just the home screen where it shows your ranks and stuff. Over to the right, there should be one that says codex. You should see Hollow Me Training, Codex, Squadron 11, or whatever squadron you're in. Maybe because you're in multi-crew. It's on stream if you want to
Oh,
look
I
at.
see it. I see it. I see it.
Yeah, there you go. So if you go to Codex and then click on yourself on that first screen, then under
Commander.
session log.
They changed this.
Yeah,
This
they
wasn't
did.
like this before.
They did. They did.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what's confusing me. I'm like, what? Okay, so let's see. What are we looking at here? Approximate time played.
There you go.
7 weeks, 1 day, 8 hours,
Alexa,
43 minutes.
how many hours is 7 weeks, 1 day? We'll let her do the math for us.
7 weeks and 1 day is 1,200.
Okay, 1,200 hours. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, that's not a beginner at this point at that many hours. It's funny. Like I'll talk to some guys and they're like, "Oh, I'm really pretty into the game. I've got a couple hundred hours." And we're like, "Oh, okay, so you're a brand new beginner then, right?" Because that's how I think I added mine up for Yamix recently, and I'm well above 6,500. I think I'm almost at 7, which is kind of embarrassing. Kind of embarrassing, but so
yeah. But I also
no, please, yeah.
I also play Warframe.
Okay.
A good amount. And I kind of toyed with the idea of doing kind of like a combat kind of Japanese kind of theme, kind of soundtrack too. But I haven't really put any effort in that.
And I know you're playing a good bit of Star Citizen these days. Are you playing more Star Citizen than Elite at this point?
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
But as you know, it's not a finished game. So
I know well. Yeah. What do you have a number of ships? Like I've just got the starter Mustang.
Yeah, I'm concierge, so I have I probably spent about $1,300.
Ooh, okay, wow, okay. So yeah, I would say you're definitely into it then. Yeah, I spent the $50 or so, and I'm definitely not, and I'm assuming you're not either. Definitely not one of the shitters that's it's never going to happen. It's a scam. That said, I'm definitely like, okay, enough of the feature creep, enough of, there's like, why do we have vending machines where I can buy Coke in the game, right? Like, but I can't actually play the game. My main thing I'm waiting for personally is VR support. If it had VR support right now, I would probably be playing Star Citizen.
Yeah. And I really love Elite though. So that's the thing. It's just like, when it's just the point where I really hope they add some more in so that I could really explore more, because they have
agreed.
They definitely have the template there for it.
Yep. Well, and I find it such a shame that the codex is so incredibly worthless. I think it was a great addition of the probes, and now that we can probe a planet and hey, there's something cool, you fly right down to it and see it, and not this, no more of the planetary coordinate bullshit that we used to have to do all the time. And I think those were nice additions, but it's still, you'll see these posts on Reddit and stuff of a screenshot of something, something really cool, and then you go look and you find out that it's 30,000 light years away in the middle of fucking nowhere, and realistically, for 90% of the players, maybe even higher, you're never going to get out that deep, and you're never going to get to see those things. And so I've just never understood, why there's not a better thing for in-game, and why the codex wasn't, right, a much better way to find all of the cool shit nearby. I'm curious of chat if anybody actually uses the codex, because I certainly don't. A video I made before I took a break was, I think I called it the real codex, right, using the third-party utilities. And unfortunately, one of them, my favorite one, EXTool, went down. The guy took it offline. And I need to do an updated one for Spanch, because Spanch is a good one to find stuff. Because if you just want to go see something cool, right?
Yeah.
Your average player is not going to achieve that without going to a third party something. Right. And I just don't, it's just such a shame, because I too enjoy exploration. That's why I keep this account out in Colonia, because it is so beautiful out here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And, if they, and I know a lot of people talk about it, but I mean, what makes great Elite could totally have is more than anything is that, I really get a feel for my ship.
Yes, completely agree. I mean, that's for me personally, the flight model of the ship is absolutely what keeps me in Elite, compared to maybe even something like No Man's Sky, which personally, I like the art style of No Man's Sky. I know that can be very subjective. I like it. In VR, No Man's Sky is almost better than Elite. It is so incredible. Just the immersion of it, the feel of it, of being able to walk around on an alien planet with alien flora and fauna all around you is really spectacular. But my ship, the flight model, there's no flight model. It's absolutely barely an arcade game for flight. And for me personally, engineering, I know a lot of people shit on it or think it's this big difficult thing that can take up your whole life, and that's not necessarily true, because first of all, you don't have to engineer a ship to full grade 5 for it to be significant changes. But the huge amount of flexibility that you have, specifically with engineering, to be able to, build this just huge array of combinations is something that, I just love. It's by far, for those that don't really play with it and BGS, background simulation, are the two deepest parts of the game. And they're both, BGS not so much, but they're both kind of locked behind a lot of time, a lot of grind, right?
Yeah. I mean, if they added that into Elite, where I could walk around my ship, I mean, that would be huge.
Yeah, I'm very mixed on space legs, not to go down that path real quick. The biggest thing for me, whenever people bring up space legs, is where's the gameplay, right? Because getting up and walking around my ship, I've done that, because you can kind of do that in VR. It's fun for 5 minutes. And then, okay, I did that. There's nothing to do, right? So where's the gameplay, right? If it's literally, and some people say, oh, well, you dock at a station, you walk in to talk to the mission giver, or you walk in to talk to the, the commodities market or whatever. You really want those things to take longer? Because I don't, right?
Yeah, that's the thing, is you can make a mistake and do what Eve Online did, and then put that in there where the guy you can walk around in the space station, it serves no purpose.
Exactly. Right. Yep. I want gameplay.
Yeah. What it does for me is it kind of gives me this sense of that I'm actually in a real ship and not in a cockpit.
Oh yeah. And do you play in VR, or are you just 2D?
Just 2D.
Okay. Because I would say
I know that.
No, please.
VR. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That must change a little bit.
Oh, it's, the simplest way I can put it is, in 2D, you're playing a very pretty space game, right? In VR, you are flying a fucking spaceship, right? It is that big, especially if, I'll admit I'm lucky and I've got HOTAS controls and pedals and the whole thing, right? And for me, again, I want the experience of, I am sitting in my cockpit of my spaceship, right? Flying around, and there's no other game right now that can give you that experience. Right. And that's ultimately what makes me love Elite. Despite, I would say that we loved Elite in spite of Frontier, not because of Frontier, which is really a damn shame, actually.
Yeah, and being able to land or fly into any planet would be nice. In Elite, I because just like this gas giant you see in the background here,
Yes.
you just kind of know that you can never go down
Right.
there
And see,
or fly
that's
in the.
when we talk about features, like the big feature request between, say, space legs and then atmospheric planets. Oh, I want atmospheric planets so much more than I want space legs. Right. Like
Yeah,
that's a thing that I love about Star Citizen and actually No Man's Sky, even though, again, the look is very different, is you can fly to each one of these planets. You can land on this, all the different biomes you can see and all the different types of terrain you can see and all that stuff, right? Where Elite, it's just a different, slightly colored, deserted planet, right?
yeah, yeah.
And it was a big update back in 3.0 when they gave us the planets we have
Yeah.
now compared to, when did you start playing Elite?
I kind of started playing later than most people, but I would say, shoot, 2017,
Okay, okay.
2016,
So
something like
you
that.
started before 3.0 then, is that right? Before we had the planetary change, when everything looked like an orange tangerine with pits all over it,
Yeah,
every planet was boring as
yeah,
fuck. Yeah. Yeah. And so that was a very nice change, but still
yeah.
it's just, it's unless you find there's a few planets around with great. There's a planet or Ariel, one of the moons of Uranus in Sol, that has some amazing canyons in it. There's a planet that I laughing refer to as Testicle Moon because
Oh yeah,
the whole thing is covered by 20-kilometer deep ribbon canyons, and so it looks like a big wrinkly testicle. And
yeah,
it's amazing. Now it's 800, 700 light years away from the bubble, so it's a little bit of a hike to get there, but
yeah,
not too terribly bad. But taking something like I've got an Imperial Eagle that'll boost to 930 meters a second, and running that through the canyons on Ariel is really spectacular. And you see that kind of stuff in Star Citizen now, right, with the low flight and the new planets, and that's really where I wish Elite was going.
yeah. Have you seen the weather yet that
I
they
have,
added
I have,
recently?
yes, right.
Oh my gosh,
And
yeah.
yeah, it looks great, right? But it is one of those things that it's like, okay, they're redoing the weather system or they're redoing the net code. What do you mean redoing? You haven't even released the game yet. How
Yeah,
do you redo something, right? I mean, how are we 9 years in, eight
yeah,
years in,
yeah,
and but that's a whole nother bitching conversation.
yeah, yeah.
Back to music. A couple other questions I want to get to because we'll probably wrap this up, guys, here in the next, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, depending. And if you've got, I've seen some questions come in. I know there's been a little bit of discussion about Elite specific stuff. Forgive me for ignoring that a little bit today. I've seen some guys helping others in the chat. I really appreciate that, guys. But obviously, this wasn't really the format to discuss really specific Elite stuff. So going back to the music stuff, one of the things I wanted to talk about is, doing collaborations. You talked about kind of some of the hip hop stuff you had done. Collaborations, and who would you most, again, you can just pick somebody to collaborate with on a project. What does that look like?
I've actually collaborated with Tom Cook. He's a elite kind of community kind of guy.
That sounds really familiar, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in mostly the Revelations album. He
Okay.
did
Oh,
Frontier
that's right. That's where I know it
Calls.
from. That's where he's the vocalist, right?
Yeah, Frontier
Yes.
Calls.
Yes.
He
Yes.
sung, and he also played the acoustic guitar in that song. The song is mostly acoustic guitar and him singing, but I added a trumpet in there and some strings. And the general direction of the track. And so it was a pretty big collaboration between the two of us. The Revelation, when it first opens up, there's a track called "The Alien Within."
I was just about to say, I think that's the one. I specifically love the acoustic version of that. But yeah, why don't we take a quick break here and should I play that one real quick?
Yeah,
The Alien Within. Okay, yeah. So this is The Alien Within. Oh yeah. I love this damn song. I'll admit I like I'm kind of tend to be an instrumentalist anyway. I like the instrumental version a little better, but this is the Tom Cook version. So here we go, guys.
Paranoia calls. I know the game. There's rumors in the black, the return of an old name. Conflicts coming, that's what they say. Conflicts gonna arise. Somewhere in the dark, what we fear is awake. It knows the game and it knows how we play it. But we've forgotten those ways. Yeah, we've forgotten those days. The bubble is full, humanity is ripe. So sick of crying, all we seem to do is fight. Brother on brother, man and machine. So busy bitching, took her eyes off the radar screen. Imps and feds fighting over new territory. Alliance sneaking around, making discoveries. Galnet is silent until the last moment. Then we will turn on each other. Yeah, brother. Walls have ears, there's eyes on every corner. The system keeps pushing us below the water. Fear in their eyes and hate on their lips. They're looking for danger, but they don't know where it is.
Yeah, that's that main, especially the intro, that the pan that you've got going on, you know, the stereo pan back and forth. Man, I've definitely used this track several times, the non-vocal version, in a couple things. Should I play a little bit of Frontier Calls as well?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, here's Frontier Calls.
Oh, the frontier keeps calling my name. Sick of running this trade route to nowhere again. So I charged on my drive, plot a course for far away. Hit the black, oh, I'm free again to fly my way. Too many fights, too many kills, all those plots, all those plans.
Yeah, that's and I've, you know, I haven't, I'll admit, I haven't listened to this version of it very much. I forget how great Tom's vocals are. And did you mention that the trumpet is also live?
No, that's a
It is
sample.
wow. Okay, that's really impressive for a sample. And so talk to me a little bit about how you guys collaborate on this. I assume this was not done in person. Was this all done sending tracks back and forth between each other?
Yeah, you know, I asked him. I was like, you know what? Let's. You know, I kind of gave him an idea of kind of what chords I was looking for, and he kind of gave me a guitar track example, and I was like, yeah, okay, let's do this and that. We made adjustments back and forth, and then he wrote those lyrics pretty much in one day. You know,
Wow,
they're very
okay.
elite centric. They're very elite centric.
Sure, absolutely it is, right?
And you know, I kind of I got the WAV files from him, and then I basically just slapped some reverb on it.
I was going to ask. I assume he sent you everything just completely raw and dry to let you handle. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I told him, send it as raw as possible because I want to preserve a lot of the artifacts and the sound and all that.
Do you sing as well, or just instrumentalists like me?
Yeah, just instrumentalists.
Yeah,
I'm okay.
I can't sing for shit. To be perfectly blunt, I'm awful. Right.
Yeah. And I have a close friend of mine. His name is Jeff Murray, and he's Commander Gunjamming on an Elite.
Okay.
He's played a couple, well, more than a couple guitar tracks for me, and he featured mostly on the Explorers, but he was also on the last track of Revelation. There's a track called Victory at the very end, and that was a very interesting track because I wanted it to sound like it was being played at a concert. So I put live crowd in there, and I put myself talking in the beginning of the track as if I was talking on a microphone at a crowded kind of concert.
I just started it up, so we've got it playing in the background, kind of light.
Yeah, and the beginning and the end, like I actually talk in that. It's like the only track where I say anything.
Oh yeah, okay.
I really wanted to sound like just like kind of a on stage jam session finale for the album, and I was really happy with it.
I have to admit, I'm going to turn it up a little bit and let everybody else hear because I agree. Oh, especially the reverb and the echo on the snare.
Yeah.
Very live feeling.
Yeah, I just had him just go wild on the lead. I was like, you know what? This is
Yeah.
fun.
Turn it down a bit. Yeah, I'm assuming that guitar riff is that Jeff that we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
That lead. Whoops. It's a little sorry, guys. It's a little hard to get the volume. Like I'm using Windows Media Player, and when you get to the bottom, it's hard to get like 1, 2, 3%, whatever. So sorry for the audio bouncing a bit. And I kind of tossed it in chat, because we'll probably wrap up here relatively shortly, guys. So if you've got questions that we haven't gotten to, by all means, I've tried to pay attention to chat. So if you've got stuff, please throw them out. A few things that you had sent me on the list we talked about before. So these are a little bit random, but you had a what's your most useless talent, right? What would you toss there? Random kind of thing that has maybe nothing to do with any of this that you feel talented at.
I've always been pretty good at, balling up papers and throwing it in the trash can far away.
Hey, that's a pretty good useless talent. I'll give you that one.
I was like number one in the office at that.
Hey, there you go. And so speaking of the office, is it right that you have a normal 9 to 5, and this is kind of your side gig? If you don't mind talking about that a bit.
Yeah, majority of income is I have my own IT consulting business.
Okay.
I've been doing that for a long time, and that's pretty much my primary source of income. And
Sure.
I'm really good at solving problems in the technical stuff, but it's not necessarily what I love to do.
Yeah, fair enough. It's amazing to me the number of guys that I've met throughout both my technical career as well and being a musician that cross over, right? How many tech guys are into music and vice versa? And, I think a lot of people might find that surprising, but I think it fits well because I think a really good technical guy, engineer, whatever, needs to be creative, to solve problems and that kind of stuff. And as a musician, right, while you're thinking creatively, there's also a lot of structure, a lot of logic behind it. Things, music works the way it does and sounds the way it does because of those kind of rules, for lack of a better term. So I find that the two are very complementary, much more so than people would normally expect.
Oh yeah, if I wasn't as good as I am with computers, and it would be a much harder process to do what I'm doing. So that's definitely a useful skill. And I found that because of my creativity and my technical skill, I've kind of gotten to master some of the intricacies of creating the music, like more than some, So
Yeah.
I'm kind of thankful I have that palette to work with, because not everyone can take the same samples and the same software and output the same result.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot of practice. And,
If you, this might be really hard, and I know it puts a lot of people on spot sometimes to think of something, but if you had to pick what you maybe consider either the greatest or your favorite, maybe 2 or 3 favorite musicians, greatest musicians of all time, who comes to your mind, quickly?
Now we're talking like composers, or just musicians?
We're talking musicians, right? Whatever you would think to answer. It might be a composer, whatever you feel like is your favorites.
And this is kind of a mixed bag, but I would say Herbie Hancock.
Oh, great answer. Yeah. Okay.
And maybe I'm a little biased because he's my cousin. But
Oh, serious? What? Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. We would have had the whole damn interview about that if I'd have known that. Okay. We got to chat later on because I'm a
Yeah.
huge
It's too
Herbie
late, it's too
Hancock
late.
fan. Yeah. Yeah. We won't get into that right now. Wow. That's incredible. Wow. Yeah. And hopefully everybody knows more than Herbie than Rocket, from back in Beverly Hills Cop, because that's not Herbie Hancock as the Herbie Hancock I love. Right. Wow. That's really impressive. Have you gotten to play with him?
I've gotten to go to the studio
Okay.
and I've gotten to spend a little time with him, especially when I was younger.
Okay. Okay.
It's been a bit more challenging later on in life. He's always like really busy. And we
Gonna
don't live
say,
together.
right? He's not just sitting around doing nothing, is he?
Yeah, he's always doing something.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
his studio was once, but it'd be nice if I could link up with him more. But
Yeah,
you would
yeah.
think I would get to. But I hope to see him in family reunion soon.
Oh, wow,
And
that's great. Yeah, super jealous of that. He wouldn't be on my top 3 list, but hey, I would never argue him on a top list like that, right? What others?
Yeah, but I tend to really appreciate jazz musicians.
Yeah.
So like Miles Davis and
He's definitely in my top 3, so you nailed one. Actually, absolutely.
yeah.
Right. I wish more
'Cause I-
people
I-
I wish more people understood the impact that Miles had on all of pop music, all of modern music today. People don't. It's a shame that he's just not appreciated. And one of my great regrets is that I never got to see him live before he passed.
Yeah, I mean, being a musician myself and playing an instrument and having that experience, you get to really appreciate the skill that some of these
Yes.
jazz players have.
Yes.
I mean,
Well, and
that is not easy.
no, and Miles did, for those that don't know Miles's music really well, that one of the things that Miles was so wonderful at was not playing, right? And knowing when to shut up and knowing when to use, that you didn't constantly need to be, and not to knock Coltrane or even, any Cannonball Adderley or any of those guys, right? But they tended to be, specifically Coltrane tended to be, a really fast player, right? Really technical, with a lot to say, a lot of really fast stuff. And Miles had the chops for that, but he also would give space in music and let that space and let that openness be there. And that's one of the biggest things that I took away from Miles, in my personal playing, because as I talk kind of fast and a lot, my playing tends to be that way too. And getting that making me slow down, I think, is a really important thing.
And I also wanted to add, and this is kind of part of another older question, is that actually my wife is on the Explorers. She's a.
Oh, really?
I use
Okay.
I use her middle name for her last name on the album. It's Amanda Lee, but
Okay.
um,
And which track? Let's fire that up.
it's a Event Horizon.
Event Horizon. Oh, there it is. Yep. Okay. Well, of course, boy, if you'd gotten through this and not mentioned her, that might have been on the couch tonight. So here we go. Let's hear that one.
Kind of has a long dramatic intro.
Yeah, I'm digging it so far. And I don't know the vocal ones as well because I tend to not use those in the videos. God, those cellos are just so impressive sounding.
Never thought love was this kind of fight. Your darkness consuming all my light. Adrift, caught by your gravity. Can't help but want your tragedy. Event horizon. You're pulling me. Event horizon. You're pulling me.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic. Does she sing? I mean, is she trained at all? Does she sing professionally at all, or is this just she's got a voice and hey, honey, come sit in on a track with me?
You know, she used to do a lot of that when she was younger. Um, she she did a lot of she she was offered a record deal back in the day. I
Wow.
guess
Okay.
she didn't really progress that much more on that, but she is trained though. She's
I mean,
what's
quite
what's a
obviously.
yeah, she went to I believe Berkeley
Oh,
School of Music or something
wow.
like that.
Okay. Okay. Then that's yeah. To put it mildly, she's been trained. Then,
Yeah.
yeah. That's wow. That's really, and you can hear in her voice that it's not your typical just pop kind of voice or somebody who just can sing, right? It's funny. I'll admit I have a huge bias against singers. I always think, fuck singers. You're born able to sing. Nobody was born able to play
Yeah.
saxophone, right? You like that. And not that you don't train a voice, right? Not to really shit on vocalists, right? But it's always driven me crazy since I can't sing for shit, right? And so, okay, so we talked about Miles. We talked about Herbie Hancock. Any others that you would throw out on that list? Either influences to you that you think are, influences, period.
If I could add composers in that,
Yeah, absolutely can.
I like because Barry McCreary and Hans Zimmer.
That's who I was thinking of earlier, Hans Zimmer. When we were talking about, I think he did Hunt for Red October. That's exactly who I was thinking of, was Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, those two composers have been probably the most influential on me actually wanting to just go ahead and do it myself. I was always a bit intimidated by John Williams for a long time. It's like, how can I make music like that?
Yeah,
And I was
yeah,
just like,
yeah. How does he make music like that, right?
yeah, and the more that I do it, the more that I think I come closer to like okay, well, I get it now. I can figure it out, But it was so daunting at first. But the Battlestar Galactica soundtrack, the Interstellar soundtrack.
Oh, the Interstellar. Did you know that they scored Interstellar before they edited the movie? Like he went to,
Yeah,
remind me who composed it, but he went to him and said, here, compose me something and we're going to edit around that, where most of the time it's kind of the other way around, right? The story and everything is done and the
yeah,
composer writes to that, which is, I think, why some of those scenes in Interstellar toward the end, especially, right, is
yeah.
just, I mean, it's so incredible. If you ask me, the music is almost another character in that film.
Yeah, that was Hans Zimmer, and Hans
It was,
Zimmer,
okay.
also his the Batman soundtracks, the new ones,
Oh,
that
yeah.
were done by him.
Yeah, yeah.
It-
Well, the original Danny Elfman Batman soundtracks are some of my favorites.
yeah, yeah, and that's why I mentioned Danny
Yeah.
Elfman as well. But you know, I, but yeah, recently, I mean, that was like, okay, I got to do this because I love the music so much. It's like I know I could do it. It just took me a while to catch up technically. But
When
at
did
this
you
point,
first,
it's
when
like,
did you put out your very first album?
technically, there's an album called Songs from the Black,
Okay.
and I believe that came out in 2016.
Oh, well, okay. Wow. So this is all fairly recent then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that wasn't really. I'm not really proud of it.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
It was kind of just me figuring out
Sure.
how to get it working properly, and I
Sure.
did okay, but I don't know. And then I came out with another album after that called Genesis, which that kind of disappeared off the online list of things for the most part because I retracted it. And a
Yeah.
lot
Okay.
of the
Okay.
tracks I really liked from that I put on Exodus.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay. And actually, we're listening to
eh,
some Exodus right now. We're listening to Attack. One of my favorites off Exodus, Attack of the Colonies, is kind of playing in the background right
oh
now.
yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely a favorite.
yeah.
Um,
And in a lot of the late albums, they're kind of timed to what was going on at the time. Like I know, Exodus I spent like a year working on, and there's so many. There's like 32 tracks in that one album.
yes, it's a
Um,
hugely long album, isn't it?
yeah, but then like it was like I don't know. It was like 2 or 3 months before the Thargoids were being released.
Okay. Okay.
And I made Revelation in like about 2 months.
Okay. Okay.
So I
For that
I
many
just
tracks,
powered-
I was gonna say that's pretty
Yeah.
damn fast, especially with a
Yeah,
full-time job
I
to boot.
yeah, I powered through that album, and I wanted to get it done right as that content was being released. So I kind of rushed through it. I spent because I can create pretty quickly, but it's like, okay, do I want to spend my whole weekend doing music?
Right.
Usually I don't. Usually I don't. Do I want to come home after work and do it? Usually I don't. So
Right. Right.
in this case, I did. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna spend all my time doing it, and then I got it done in 2 months. So
And is that
that was
usually kind of your workflow? Like, in other words, you get into something and like I tend to be very obsessive about what I do, right? Like whatever I'm into, I tend to be full bore into that until I'm not, and then I'm full bore into something else. So do you kind of tend to be that way with your workflow? Like if you're starting an album or you're working on something, bam, it's that until you're done with it. Do you tend to pick it
yeah.
up and put it down?
Yeah, it's like that. I get totally into it, and I stop listening to any other music except for maybe some stuff that I want to listen to that's like orchestral. That's kind of like I want to get some ideas from.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I stopped listening to anything else, and I just kind of just dive right into it, and
Who are
so
some
it's done.
do you have anybody you would toss out that you've like a new discovery recently? Like who you're listening to now? Is there anybody new that you've kind of found recently?
Um, Sometimes I don't know their name, but it could be like the show or the you know. And I really appreciated the whoever did the soundtrack for Alien Prometheus
Okay.
the
Uh-huh.
movie.
Uh-huh.
His name that I really like the soundtrack for that
Yeah.
soundtrack
Okay.
was really cool.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I like the Black Cells music. I like and a lot of stuff is done by Bear McCreary too. Like Black Cells is done by Bear McCreary. The Battlestar Galactica is him. Um, but he's not new. But I'm just saying, like, um, I listen to a lot of orchestral. So, in fact, when I'm watching a show, I get distracted by the music a lot of times,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
I kind of lose focus on what they're saying, what's going on and I have to kind of just battle that because I can kind of hear everything, what's going on, and I pay attention to that more than
Yep.
the show.
And all of a
Sometimes,
sudden you realize, oh shit, I didn't hear the last 2 minutes of dialogue, right? And you got to rewind it. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I pay a lot of attention to the relationship between what's going on in the show and
Uh-huh.
what's going on with the music
Uh-huh.
and how it's being done because I always try to it's always a process of learning. Like I always feel like I'm learning more and more, like how to invoke certain emotions from people using sound.
Absolutely. It's
Um,
amazing. One of the things that the kind of people don't really think about is if you're watching, like we can stand, if you're watching a movie, let's just say, and the video is kind of not great quality, we can tolerate that, right? But our ears, that when audio is not there, when the sound's not there, when the quality's bad, or it doesn't match with what you're seeing or the emotion that's trying to be conveyed, we really don't. We can react to that very negatively. So it really is amazing what an influence that. I mean, on the surface we all know this, right? But what an impact the right music and the right score for the right moment can absolutely change everything about an experience, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
can I respond to something? One of your
Please,
chat people?
please. I was about to ask you a couple questions from it, so please do.
Okay. So, Duchess Elysium.
I was about to
talking
ask you
about
that. Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, initially they did, and not so much using it in the game, but they showed more interest in promoting my music at first. But I don't know what happened, but at some point that dropped, and that was around the Elite Dangerous, not Elite Dangerous, the Explorers album.
Okay.
Um, I couldn't really get any mention of that in the newsletter or any retweets or anything like that. They
Yeah.
kind of just
I'm sitting here shaking my head because sadly that doesn't even remotely surprise me. I mean, again, I don't mean this to be a shit on Frontier session, but even us as the creators, while if I emailed them and asked for, hey, can I get, and actually I should have done this for this stream, can I get some skins and stuff to give away and things like that? Usually I'll get a response. might take 2 or 3 emails to them in a week to finally get a response. So I joked earlier, and it's not really a joke, that we love Elite in spite of Frontier, not because of. I'm working with a developer on an app called Game Glass, which is a kind of a controlling app. It's kind of neat for Elite. And he was talking to me about, like, I asked him if he'd talked to Frontier, and yeah, they were trying to talk and they were hoping this, that, and the other. And I basically flat out told him, like, look, that's great. Don't want to shit on the idea. You should try to pursue it, but here's my expectation, right? My expectation is that you are not going to get any level of support. You're not going to get any sort of reply, right? You're not going to get anything back from them, right? And again, it's just so sad that they squander, people like yourself, right? Because this absolutely should be something that's being promoted, if not brought into the game, right? Because I actually do really like the music in game, but I've fucking been listening to it for 4 years and 6,700 hours. Right? Like it would not be difficult at all to license some of this stuff from you. And I imagine whatever licensing fee you'd charge them would be a lot less than they paid for the original music, right? And have some new music in the game. There was... No, please.
The guy who worked the music for Elite, he's like their sound designer or something.
Oh, okay. So he is an internal employee then.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
He's just a guy who probably knows enough about, making music to make something, and it's decent, but I like you said, I'm just, you hear it enough, and it's like, okay, let's hear something else, like.
Exactly, right? Again, I don't mind it, but at this point, I mute it and listen to something else. And in fact, I can't remember if it was a separate app or a voice attack plugin, but there was some app a while back, maybe a year or so ago, that came out that kind of would create dynamic music for the game. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Now that I am affiliated with that.
Okay. Well, you tell us a little bit about that.
There's a software made by Game Music Packs.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're called they were called voice packs. And there's a bit of controversy on that with HCS and all that, which I don't know if you want to get into that. But,
it's up to you if you think it's helpful, but probably not. And this is from darknebula.cloud, right? If I got the right site. Okay. Yep. And your album just popped up on it. So.
Yeah. So basically that software works with voice attack for the time being. And basically, it gives you kind of a dynamic experience with the music. And what was cool and unique about that in regards to my music is the Explorers album. For that album, I actually created about anywhere from 3 to 6 different versions of each track.
Okay.
And those, and let's say I'll have one track where the percussion's not gone, or the lead instrument's different, or it's up a key, or like. So while you're sitting there playing Elite, you could be like, you could tell it to go up a key, and it'll go up a key.
Yeah, that's right. Or pick whatever instruments you want and things like that.
Yeah. It'll remove vocals or whatever, right? And that was pretty cool, because you could tell it what you want, and I think that was pretty interesting. It was a lot of work, especially for orchestral. If it's synth, it's a lot easier to do, but orchestral is like a lot of other things I think about, but it's kind of cool. So if you're listening to Event Horizon, you're like, hey, I don't want to hear the singer, okay, or remove vocals.
Sure. I imagine that was a pretty decent technical challenge for you to provide it, the track split like that, so that you could multi-track it and take the stuff out. I got to imagine that was a fair bit of work.
Yeah.
So. And speaking of that, while we're on the topic, let's talk a little bit about how everybody can support you, right? Like where they'd find your music, where they could buy your music. I've been pasted in the Bandcamp link pretty much over and over. Is there a set fee for this stuff? Is Bandcamp kind of a, hey, I suggest you pay what you want? Tell us a little bit about that.
Bandcamp, and it's kind of I really appreciate if people do this, but not required. But some people they'll buy the album and then they'll just add whatever they want on top of that, and that's pretty cool. Like you can do that on Bandcamp. I also have the discography for a discount.
Okay.
But yeah, the Bandcamp gives you a lot of freedom with that. So that's an awesome way if you want to support me on on Bandcamp. That's cool.
Yeah, and I see we've got the full discography, guys. It's $40 for 5 albums. Each of the
Yeah,
albums is
yeah.
$10 each. I've bought all the albums. I think I chipped in a little extra when I bought the last one, since I use them in almost all of my videos. And am I also right that from a licensing standpoint, talk about that real briefly for guys that might want to include your tracks in things?
Yeah, so I'm pretty loose with that. Now, even though my stuff is copyrighted and it's not exactly Creative Commons,
Okay.
not exactly royalty free per
Okay.
se, but I'm very loose with it. So what that means is I removed my tracks from YouTube's content ID system,
Okay.
um, and a lot of other social media. And when someone wants to use it on their videos, it's like you're good to go. You know, the only time where I kind of feel like people maybe should pay a license is if they put it in a commercial or short film or
Sure. Sure. Well, I mean, I monetize my videos, right? So, I
yeah.
yeah.
And even then, if you monetize videos, I'm not gonna come at you with that. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, I get where you're going. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, you're
yeah,
being more than generous about that kind of stuff, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, I'm not greedy or anything. But what it does do ultimately is it lets me invest back in my music. I
of
can get
course,
better software,
of
better
course,
samples, more different equipment, and it helps me out. You know, um, it also shows me people are enjoying it too.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
So it gives me more motivation to create more content than I would just for fun.
Sure, sure. So yeah, for those of you
And
that are enjoying this stuff, yeah, please, let's go out support, because if people like us that do love this stuff aren't supporting guys like you, right? It we don't have this content, right? I mean, that's while we do it. I would imagine. Don't let me speak for you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you certainly don't do this for the money. But hey, it'd be great to make money at it. I certainly don't produce
yeah,
the content I produce for money. I've always figured you make good stuff, and if people like it, some money might come, kind of thing, right?
yeah,
So I
yeah,
get exactly what you mean, that it's just a big icing on the cake, right?
yeah. It is nice. I mean, now some people, I do notice I do have a good amount of Spotify streams, um, and that's nice too.
And do you
So
get monetization from Spotify?
yeah,
Oh,
I
okay,
get it from
okay.
Apple
Oh, that's
Music,
great. Okay.
Spotify.
Okay. So if people are listening to your
So
tracks on Spotify, you're getting a small cut of that on every play. Is that right?
yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah.
great. Okay. Okay.
It varies by what country you're in, but in general, and I think a lot of people don't know this kind of stuff, but each stream song is probably about 2/10 of a penny.
Okay. I was going to ask, but I also didn't want to. I was very curious, but I didn't want to be rude and ask. I'm not
Yeah,
surprised it's that low, right?
yeah, and if it's Apple Music, it's a little more. It could be like a
Okay.
cent, but it does add up.
Of course. Yeah, of
You know,
course.
if you're, and during peak times, like when I release a new album or something, like I can get like anywhere from 4 to 8 thousand streams a week.
Yeah. Okay.
So
All right. So yeah, and that does
it,
add up, right?
yeah,
And so speaking
yeah,
of that, let's and I think we will, guys. I'm going to close out here. I said that like 30 minutes ago. Not that this has been great, and I'm having a blast. But a couple things as we wrap up here. If you've got any other questions, please throw them in so that we miss those. Miguel, you had mentioned about a YouTube chat. We talked about the question about, I forget what it was, but the question about Frontier and stuff. Was there any other questions you saw in chat that you wanted to cover? Anything kind of we haven't covered that you wanted to jump to? I've got a couple more things that I wanted to go through.
yeah. You know what? I'll go through some of the things I've seen.
Yeah, please.
So Brian asks, do I have a preference between Reaper and Pro Tools?
Okay.
Like I I would use Pro Tools if I wanted to make that move to a Mac. Definitely, I would love to use Pro Tools, but now it's kind of like I'm stuck with either Reaper or Cubase probably. So, um,
Okay.
and that's just because of what's available on PC. That I there's some other software that I wouldn't really use because I'm not really interested in that. But if I wasn't going to use Reaper, I would use Cubase. So, um, and mostly because that's what most people use who are on PC, and it's nice to use the same DAW as other composers and musicians. So, Is there anything you saw?
No, not that I saw that was specific, right?
Okay.
And the couple things that I was going to ask, kind of as we close out here, is, one of the things you had in the list we talked about is what is one of or some of the best advice that you think you've ever gotten, around music, maybe not even around music. How would you answer that?
You know, some of the best advice I've gotten, and this actually comes from a lot of my, you know, people who make comments on my channel, or people I've talked to from the Elite community. Because I kind of started doing this with the Elite community, you know. Um, so a lot of my memories, and as far as composing and making these albums, come from that. So I would have to say, a lot of people have told me, initially, that my song sounded kind of, repetitive,
Okay.
or um, and that was kind of my biggest feedback. And I was like, why did they think that? And and so I went back, and I actually spent a lot of time trying to make that not
Okay.
true.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, so that was a big one. That
And I
I've done
would
a
say
lot.
I definitely hear a common theme through your music, but not in any kind of bad way, right? It's very coherent. It's very,
Yeah,
it doesn't, some albums, and this can be good or bad, right? You got some albums where every track on it almost sounds like it's a different musician, or that it's saying something different. Where I think that you've done a really good job in each album feels to a common theme, right? Yeah, of course you've got the more driving stuff and the vocals we listen to and some of the tracks we listen to, but there's also, it's also balanced, right? And I really
yeah,
like that
yeah.
about your music.
Now, at the same time, people have to realize it's not a pop song. It's not going to take you on one song is not going to take you on a journey,
Sure,
through like 10 different key changes.
sure.
The
But
the
at the
whole
same
the whole
time,
object.
well, you say that at the same time, when I think about going through a journey, the songs that popped into my head are Shining You Crazy Diamonds by Pink Floyd, right? That
Yeah,
song.
yeah,
If we go to classical, something like Bolero, right? Where you're going to go through
yeah,
this whole emotional journey, so to speak, right? And I absolutely hear that in a lot of your music, right? I get what
yeah,
you mean in terms of, it's not going to be, like a pop song, and it's not going to be one thing, and it's not going to be necessarily a catchy tune, right? But I think that there is this, I feel like good music, especially as a soloist, I think a good solo feels like it's telling a story, right?
yeah,
It feels like
yeah.
it's going somewhere. And in, like the one that we played earlier with your wife on it, I think was a great example, right? It started out slowly, it built, you've got the vocals come in, and then we get into the meat of the song, right? And we've taken this journey from, we're relaxed and chilling to now we're full on in the music, right?
Yeah, yeah, and what I try to do is I try to enhance the experience that you're seeing on the screen. That's what I'm trying ultimately.
Sure, sure.
And each track is coloring that emotion. So you know, uh, in general, I'm not going to make any changes to that in one track. I'm
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
try to like give you a good enhancement of your experience. And if you notice, like e- with every album except for Exodus, it started with Revelation. Um, there is a journey going on there from track one to the end, and there's a direction, and there's a story. Um, and I'm actually kind of treating it like it's a story. So you start off at one point with an intro, you end with the ending, and there's things going on in between. And if you really think about it and listen to it, you can kind of imagine, some sort of a story taking place. You know, um, and that's kind of what I've tried to do since Revelation, the Explorers, and Citizen of the Stars is tell a story from
Sure.
A to Z.
Sure. And the best music tells a story, right? You close your eyes and you can feel that, like I tend to feel like the best music that I listen to, again, I can close my eyes and I'm not maybe seeing the story that you're seeing, but I'm seeing a story, right? I'm visualizing, there's something going through that I can feel emotionally going through the music. And I think that's what makes, this is very random, but I don't know if you've ever heard of a band, they broke up a couple years ago and it's a Swedish band called Porcupine Tree. You ever heard of them? Anybody ever heard of them?
No.
I'll send you some of their stuff later. They're very kind of Pink Floyd meets Rush meets Metallica. Okay, and they're very skilled musicians. So it's very musicians' music. And there's a specific song I'll send you later called "Arriving Somewhere But Not Here." That's like a 12-minute anthem, kind of almost similar to something like "Shouting You Crazy Diamonds," where it starts very chill, very relaxed, and then in the middle you've got this huge driving kind of Metallica guitar, right? And then you end on this very chill Pink Floyd kind of feel. I'll send it to you later. It's when I asked earlier if there was anything that you were listening to recently that you'd found new. There was somebody I discovered a couple years ago, and I cannot get enough of. Right? Yeah, somebody Brian knows Porcupine Tree.
Yeah, I end up in my own music bubble a lot. So
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
If anyone wants to show me any new stuff, I'm open to it because I don't look for it. So.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm kind of the same way. Recently, somebody turned me on to a kind of a acoustic jazz group. They're kind of, they've got jazz influence. They all met at Berkeley, but the stuff they do is a little more mainstream than that. But they're called Lake Street Dive. Lake Street Dive. Their lead singer, oh my God, her name just escaped me. It's Rachel something. Is one of the most incredible vocalists I've ever heard. And they've got this. It's like light guitar, electric and acoustic, a trumpet player, upright bass, very small kit drummer, right? He's maybe got like a 3-piece kit, couple cymbals is all. So it's very airy, very open, and it's phenomenal, right? I definitely at the end of this, I'll swap some links and stuff back and forth with you so we can share some of that.
Sounds good.
And so I unfortunately, I've got something I've got to run do. So I'm going to go ahead and close out. As we close out though, what song, because what I'll do is I'll leave the stream going to play something. What is maybe, I don't know if it's your favorite, what do you think is the best song of yours right now that I would show off to everybody? What do we close out with?
I'm really proud of how I ended Citizen of the Stars.
Okay.
With the grand finale, because it took themes from the album and it put it all on one track. And I even changed the Rescue Beacon song to give it put the hurdy-gurdy in there, made it sound a little more pirate-ish,
Sure.
And
wait, you've got a synth, you've got a synth hurdy-gurdy in it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. If you guys don't know what a hurdy-gurdy is, go look it up. They're bizarre. It's a strung instrument with a spinning wheel that runs against the strings. They're really bizarre looking, but boy, they make some really, really great music. So.
Yeah, you hear it come in the grand finale, kind of in, I don't know, a little before the middle. And I guess a way to describe it is you kind of think pirate when you think of it.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to describe it, right? So again, Miguel, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad after talking about this for so long that we got together to do this. I definitely hope that you'll hang around the Discord, come back, play with us sometime. Potentially have you join us for a stream again in the future. If you guys have questions, you can. For those that have joined our Discord, I hope I don't give you too much traffic here, but you can ping Miguel there. Let me give the links to both his Bandcamp and his website. I really hope you guys will go out and support him because that's what he does this for, if I'm right. Anything else you can leave us with, Miguel, before I cut us out with grand finale?
All I like to say is, I'm definitely a firm believer in, if you really want to do something, just go ahead and do it. Learn it, practice it, execute it. And I think with enough practice, you can do it. So.
a great word to end on. So thanks again, everybody. I plan to be back to my normal streaming schedule from before last week or next week. So Tuesday night, we'll do Tutorial Tuesday, 8 o'clock Eastern. Haven't decided what I'll do yet. If you guys have suggestions or requests, you can always leave comments on even this video or just ping me in the Discord. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing everybody then. And again, thanks for joining me, Miguel.
Okay.
And
That's great.
as we close out, this is grand finale. So here we go.